Good morning, everyone. It's not just after 9. We'll go ahead and get started. I think we've got a quorum. We're waiting on a few others, but we'll get started anyways. So as soon as we see the screen signifying we're ready to go, we'll get started. We don't have, my apologies, we don't have technical video recording going on today, so it's all going to be manually recorded for those who ever want to look at the minutes of this meeting. So here we are. All right, well, good morning and welcome everyone. We are here for the March 12th Downtown Action Committee meeting, and if we could please start with a roll call.
Brian Laura.
Here.
Brian Chagas.
Present.
Roger Jansen.
Present.
Samuel Grace.
Present.
Let the record reflect that Michael Baxt is not present, Kim Doe, or Gregory Gabriel.
Okay, perfect. Item 2, minutes. We have minutes from the November hearing. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion second.
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carried, minutes approved. Moving on, we'll go to item 3, report from City Urban Designer. Chris?
Good morning, everyone. Chris Kimmerly, Senior Urban Designer. The DMP update is underway. The city has retained the services of Ziskovich Architects to perform the DMP update to the urban regulations. Just recently, in January 17th, we had our kickoff meeting with staff and the consultant to go over the goals, objectives, and the general scope for the DMP update. On February 12th, we had a debrief and walking tour. So the consultant came up to the city. We walked around various districts within the downtown. And again, we outlined some of the DMP development pressures, upcoming projects that are underway, places where the code is maybe deficient in some regulations, and again, identified places that regulations that work well. And then just recently on February 19th, we had our first steering committee meeting with introductions from the members of the committee, and then updates from the city attorney on ethics. And again, Ziskovich outlined the general scope and goals for the DMP update. So as part of this DMP update, as I mentioned, we do have a steering committee. The mayor has appointed 7 professionals within the downtown development community to be part of this steering committee. And these members here will be serving just generally as advisors to the DMP update. So they will just, be critiquing the language, giving recommendations, but there'll be no formal decision-making from this board itself. And the members there are listed. In terms of upcoming schedule for the steering committee, all meetings will be advertised online on the city's website. These meetings are open to the public to witness and view them. However, we won't take public commentary during them. This is just between the steering members and staff and the consultant. All meetings are scheduled to take place from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and they will be located here in City Hall, upstairs in our planning conference room. And again, we have a series of 7 meetings right now that are scheduled, and those are the times and dates available. Also, as part of this DMP update, Ziskovich will be conducting a series of public roundtable discussions. All these meetings, again, will be advertised on the city's website, as well as other publications and advertisements that are going to be sent out on behalf of the applicant there. These roundtable topics will cover 3 different sections, the first of which is economics. Second will be connectivity, mobility, and smart cities. And the third will be the character, public realm, and placemaking. In terms of the roundtable format, it will be moderated by the consultant team. There will be panelists or experts that are brought into this. They'll kind of share their insights on the various different topics, things that are happening within the downtown, things that they've seen in downtowns, and then it'll be opened up to Q&A through the public, as well as interactive surveying to get some real-time results from the public input.
Nice.
Here is the first scheduled roundtable, again, on the topic of economics. It is for March 20th. There will be a series of 3 different sessions. The first session will be focused on development and business. The lunch session will be out-of-town expert sharing their experiences. And then the afternoon session there will be focused on housing and community development. In terms of the overall scope and timeline for the downtown master plan update, again, we are here in the beginning phases, initial goal setting, the background research, information phase. Throughout the middle of the year, we'll be, again, doing more of those public roundtable discussions, steering committee meetings, and the goal then is to have the final draft, so to say, of the DMP language and the text changes sometime around September, and then we will formally start the process to bring that forward through DAC, Planning Board, and City Commission by then the end of the year. And are there any questions?
No, but would you mind bringing that diagram back up? I'm just curious to see the extents of their plan analysis, how far they're going up on Flagler. Is that going to include that overlay district?
So it'll just be within the boundaries of the DMP. So whatever the this is the general boundaries of the DMP now. So this is the area of focus currently. So from, was it Okeechobee, Palm Beach, Lakes Boulevard, the 2 waterfronts, and then of course that little section there of the park.
Yeah. It would be interesting while they're doing this, because I know that the city's going through that overlay study on the north end, just to get their input there as well, as a continuation of the waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyways, oh, that all sounds exciting. Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Chris?
Yeah, Chris, real fast. Tallahassee has a lot of new legislation coming down. One of them is ADUs and the possibility of bringing in, accessory dwellings on. How's that going to fit into this? I know the downtown's pretty much urban, but there are some small neighborhoods in here. Then I'm just wondering if how's that going to be addressed in terms of having the Tallahassee effect analyzed or brought into the discussion?
Yeah, from what I understand, again, Ziskovich is going to do a wholesale look at the DMP and the various different sub-districts. So whether or not that results in any changes to densities or allowances within certain sub-districts, that will be addressed, again, referencing any upcoming plans and things like that. So it's probably on the horizon, but it'll have to be assessed during this process, certainly.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Chris. Anything else on your side, Chris? No?
That would be
Good.
it.
Okay, moving down, we'll get in today's cases. If anyone wants to speak on any cases today, you can fill out a card and pass it up front here. We'll make sure you're heard, and if you are going to speak, just state your name up at the mic there, your name and address. We'll make sure we get to listen to everybody's comments. And then anyone that will be presenting testimony today, if you could stand up and be sworn in, please.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, today's first case, code revision case number 25-02, request by Roger Ramdine of Schutz and Bowen for text amendment, chapter 92.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. For the record, Roger Ramdine with the Office of Schutz and Bowen here to present this text amendment. It's a basic, very simple text amendment, as you'll see. By means of background, before I get into the request, you may know that the DMP code is specific to the downtown area, and then you have the overall code for the entire city, which is the ZLDR, so Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The DMP code, when it's silent at that point, then the general code takes over in those cases, wherever the DMP code is silent. So that's where this all basically stems from, this text amendment. So to get into the request, we have a a request to amend the language for the downtown master plan for general uses. And we also have a second request, which is under the same umbrella for the definitions of the general code. And the intent here is to provide some standards for a hospital use, and then to clarify and update the definition of hospital in the general code. So that's why you would see two sections of a code being affected here. So again, by background, the DMP regulations is silent when it relates to a hospital as a permitted use. The DMP code does have a list of uses within that section of the code, but it does not have hospital. And when we requested a zoning confirmation letter, the city was unable to specify a hospital use as a permitted use within the district. They had to classify it under an office use. So that's where this all basically came from, and that's why we're adding a hospital use to the DMP. And also as part of that, the general code has a definition for a hospital, but it doesn't specify exactly how it's licensed. So we just wanted to clarify that as well. So now getting into the code, I won't get into specifics unless you really need me to, but here's the language that we're adding into the DMP code, specific to adding a hospital use into the DMP. And I can go over it briefly if you'd like, just for the record. As it reads, a hospital is a medical institution and medical clinic or facility with inpatient services licensed by the Agency for Healthcare Administration as a hospital that provides more intensive than those required for room, board, personal services, and general nursing care, and offers facilities and beds beyond 24 hours. Hospitals shall be permitted within the urban core planning area and the specific district planning area, provided the following additional standards are met. And those standards are, it shall be at least 500 feet from a residential district. It will allow for overnight treatment. It will, the parking areas will be located within a parking structure or behind the building. And did I miss one? Yeah, there's a minimum acreage of 2 acres. And then finally, the vehicular circulation and access shall be designed to provide safe and separate emergency vehicles access, so for like ambulances, et cetera. The second section of code being affected is the overall code for the city land development regulations, and we're just clarifying how it's licensed, how a hospital is licensed. So as you can see, we struck out the State Department of Health, and we added Agency for Healthcare Administration as a hospital. We do have to demonstrate compliance with Section 9432A of the code in order to obtain approval for this request, and we believe that we do. I'm happy to go over any of them if you need me to. Staff does concur. That does bring me to the close of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I would like to share that we do and have full staff support with the recommendation of approval for this request. So again, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone, any immediate questions? Are we going to hear from staff on this as well? Yeah. Okay. We'll wait till after then. Thank you,
Okay.
Roger. Yeah.
Be very brief. Again, Roger went over the request itself. Just to give a little additional context, so within the DMP uses section today, generally our uses are very broadly defined. So we have a residential, commercial, and then a parking use. And then these are kind of further broken down into other subcategories. And again, as you see, there isn't really a use that applies directly to something of a institutional use or a hospital use. Office being the closest that we have definitions for. So within the language today, we do have definitions for medical office. But again, this is very limited in services and scope, and it doesn't include, the full inpatient and outpatient services or services beyond 24 hours. So where the DMP falls a little short, we again have another section. It's section 94106, and those are for uses that generally require additional licensing or permits. So this is where you'll see our schools, places of worship, rehabilitation facilities, bars, pubs, those things that require additional licensing. That is where we're adding this new definition of the hospital too. And then again, we're giving a couple different regulations to just define where it can be located, its hours of operation, and then some general site-specific standards, so we avoid conflicts with vehicular circulation, and then as well as the parking areas. And then in terms of the general definition, we won't be adding a definition to the DMP code. As Roger had mentioned, for areas where the DMP code falls silent, we reference to the general code. So we're just updating the general code's definition. It's a little bit outdated to specify the licensing agency, and then again to provide the services beyond 24 hours.
Chris, I just want to interrupt you for a second. Put to point out on the record, we have a board member joining.
Oh, yeah.
And then across the board for code revision case 2502, staff does recommend approval based on the proposed amendment meeting all the standards of section 9432A. And I have a recommended or suggested motion as well. Are there any questions?
Yeah, maybe just real quick, can you just edify us on the procedure, since it's been a while since we looked at the text amendments? Who makes the request? Does it come from within staff, or how does this work?
So this was a applicant request, and then we have worked with the applicant to refine that language and the definitions. And then again, you'll make a recommendation to the city commission. It will then go to the planning board for their recommendation, and then ultimately 2 hearings at city commission for the
So
approval.
anybody can make a request for text amendment to the
For a
code?
general
It
text
doesn't have to
amendment,
come
yes,
from-
but
yeah.
for comprehensive plan amendment, that has to be a city initiated.
Okay, I got you. All right. And then just secondly, since previously you were talking about the DMP update, is this did you run this through Ziskovich in terms of the master planning in the context of this specific request?
Yes, they're aware of this.
They're in agreement?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'm assuming staff is in agreement with everything in terms of good urban planning
Yep.
practice? Yeah, okay. Does anybody have any questions? Brian?
Chris, so I'm in support of this, cleaning up the code, getting the designation clarified and updating the licensing component of it. My question is this. So we have a lot of hospitals coming from out of state, coming here, headquarters in the south. But this seems to be like another extension of that. So, for example, Cleveland Clinic, are they a hospital? Because they're at 550 Okeechobee, they got offices, they do treatment. They don't have ambulatory service, but they've got all the other components of it. Are they a medical office, or are they a hospital where they're located? So now they're building a hospital downtown. So this code's allowing for that expansion. And I'm not arguing whether or not that we need another hospital downtown. I think we do, because we have so many residents downtown that a hospital downtown makes a lot of sense. It's just, is this allowing hospitals that are coming from elsewhere to expand versus what we have here locally, like Jupiter Medical Center, Gardner Medical Center, like all the facilities we have here now? Would they now be in competition for that same land, for the same restrictions, like the size, the setbacks, the separation issues? Is this opening a door that is allowing for this feeder of uses, or is this a limit, is only allowed in limited areas, and really that it can't be accommodated? Because hospitals or campuses, most likely, they usually have back services, a medical office, treatment, all kinds of things to help support the hospital. And obviously, in an urban setting, we've got a different situation here, because it's unique in that this isn't your big campus where you've got all the other ancillary buildings. You know, you have a tight amount of real estate. Is this opening the door for, competition that, beyond sort of what we already have here now, or these other ones coming from up north and whatnot?
Yeah, so I'll try to answer that in 2 parts. So the first part is that, the DMP code today allows for the office use, so the medical office use. So what is occurring within the City Place Towers with the Cleveland Clinic, and then what the New York Langone project was developed, that came under as a medical office. So they don't have the necessarily full inpatient services and the overnight stay and the ambulatory care and things of that nature. It's very much regarded to certain testing and more of a clinical or a clinic kind of service. So that will continue to be allowed within the DMP, and, you know, we'll have more of those satellite-type offices and clinics that are permitted under the office use. This language, again, is more specific to a full medical institution and facility of a larger scale that will have, you know, the ambulatory care, that will have a more intensive, longer-term stay. And again, this is to provide buffering from residential areas, because we want to be sensitive to them with the large traffic impact and things that a hospital can bring in. But we also want to be clear that this is limited in, you know, location and services. So it's limited to areas of 2 acres or more. And again, buffering 500 feet from a residential district. So it's limited in scope of where a hospital could feasibly be within the boundaries of the downtown. But this sets some kind of general parameters to a larger scale parcel and again, away from the more sensitive areas.
Low-impact residential, because the whole downtown's residential. So it's not like you're keeping them away from the high-rises, you're keeping them away. So we understand that. It's just, I'm just curious about maybe the unintended consequences, and is this a one-off, and there's maybe 1 or 2 parcels downtown that might be eligible for this, or is this something that the hospitals can drive a truck through, and we've got competing hospitals, and, you know, like, we're a growing city, but, you know, how many of these do we need, for example?
Real quick, is anyone in the audience from the public would like to comment on this case? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public discussion and entertain any other questions from the board for staff or the applicant. Oh, and let the record show Mr.
Sure,
Gabriel is present.
Greg Gabriel for the record. Quick question for you. In reading this, I remember there was a hospital that had to come here in downtown, and they had a lesser floor, but because of air contamination and how they had to circulate air, then they had to be taller, and there was an issue with that. I'm not seeing anything about height here. I know the 2 acres, but I just want to know, because we had a situation before where, because of how the circulation inside the hospital had to be, and with airflow, and then the building had to be taller because they had to hide specific mechanical inside the ceiling. Is it the place to try to address that right now, or is that something that staff is thinking about?
Yeah, so I think that's in reference again to the New York Langone medical office that we had on Datura, and where they had that additional floor. It was the 8th story and how it projected into the conditional setback. Again, that was specific to the office use and the medical office use, and within the confines of that sub-district, so the Clematis Waterfront 10. They were actually allowed additional stories. I mean, they only built to 8, so they could have done up to 10. The issue was the encroachment within the setbacks. For this hospital language, again, because it is of a larger scale lot that's required, the 2 acres, and we limit it to the special district planning area and the urban core planning area, those are the areas of the city that have the highest development capacity. So they'll have typically a minimum of 10 stories, and, you know, FARs well and above 2.75 to 3, or in some cases, if it's in Clearwater, it would be a 7, and it'd be allowed 25 stories. So we feel that the special district planning area and the urban core kind of already allows for that additional height and capacity. So it shouldn't be an issue that needs to be addressed through the code language. That's something more so during the actual site plan process, and when they identify where the hospital goes and what district it's in, and those sub-district regulations.
Okay, thank you.
One thing for me, why was this excluded historically from the code? Was this an oversight, or was it intentionally excluded?
Good morning. Ana Maria Ponte, Development Services Assistant Director. The hospital use is not excluded. I mean, it is not identified. I mean, the code in the downtown is very, as Chris explained, it has the tables that are very general, and we just have a small section that says what uses are not permitted. Hospitals are permitted. What happened in this case is the applicant in this case wants us to have a more defined and precise that calls out a hospital. That was not. But the use is permitted currently on the downtown. So the prohibited uses are very limited. I think industrial and outdoor storage and very limited other uses, but a hospital is permitted. So it's more like a clarification of under which conditions, because they wanted to have a comfort level that it is permitted clearly under the code.
Thanks. Hey, Chris, on this slide you have here, I had a question on the parking definition on 14D. You talk about structures or behind the primary building when possible. And then it says, if not, parking shall not occupy more than 40. Does that mean we could get 40% parking, surface parking on the street? I think that sounds like it's against.
Yeah,
the
so
general.
again, the intention of this is to avoid having surface parking lot and with an office facility, campus, we anticipate that it would be structured parking. And then this is to overall limit it. If it can't be within a structure, locate it, back a house behind the main facility in campus, and then it shall not occupy more than 40% of that frontage or that area. So it was trying to set a parameter to kind of hide or limit the surface parking potential.
Well, maybe I'm reading it incorrectly, but it says when it's not within a parking structure or behind the primary building, parking areas shall not occupy 40% of the front frontage.
Yeah.
It sounds like you could have 40% parking on the street, which I
Yeah.
don't think we want, do we?
Sorry, he wants 60% building at a minimum with 40% parking to the side, like to the side of the building essentially. Like from a site planning standpoint, he's trying to push back on having a frontage of parking completely. He could have said 80-20.
And if that's a recommendation, that we can certainly try to address that ratio as well.
Oh, well, a ratio, but we just don't want surface parking on the street, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right, well, I'll let you look at that language and make sure you're comfortable with it. It doesn't, I'm reading it wrong. Okay, in any event, I think we should just make sure that it does not allow that on the street.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff for the applicant? Okay, does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve. I move that the Downtown Action Committee recommend approval for code revision case number 2502 as listed in the staff report dated March 12, 2025. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted in staff report, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The Downtown Action Committee hereby makes findings of fact that the proposed code amendments satisfy all the criteria and amendment standards found in the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Section 94-32. This approval is made conditional upon the restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards listed in the Planning Division staff report dated March 12, 2025, that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning code and consistent with the downtown master plan and the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. This motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted, which constitutes competent substantial evidence that the standards in Section 94-38D6 have been met.
Okay, motion, is there a second? Second, any discussion?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. So would the motion maker add anything to address that parking at 14D to discourage the surface parking adjacent to the main street?
I understand your concern. From a site planning standpoint, it'd be difficult, but if you want to change that, work with that ratio, that's obviously something that we could have staff work at and see if there's a better ratio. Maybe it's not truly 60-40, but they can do other mitigative measures along that frontage to help. Back in the day, they used to put awnings and stuff up, that architectural treatment along that frontage to help hide that, but 60-40, it'd be tough to put a building on there and not have enough available area for parking and circulation, and it all depends. It's really site specific, to tell you the truth. It's gonna come down to what the site looks like. There's someone in the audience who wants to talk.
Okay, so no, we got a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Do you want to make a modification to that?
I think we've made it clear to staff what our intention would be as they study the language. So I think it's understood. So, motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, great. Thank you all. Code revision case number 25-03 is going to be continued to the April 9th meeting, correct?
Correct.
Then we'll move on to administrative appeals, unfinished business, formal site plan review for 23-13 DMP 000014-2023. Architectural update on the site plan for FSPR 2313, heard at the DAC hearing June 12, 2024.
Good morning.
Here we go.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Meredith Lay. I'm with Schutz and Bowen here on behalf of the applicant. You last saw me up here last year, last June, presenting the WPB Fern Residences. It's the development that is on the corner of Fern and Quadrille. And at that hearing, you approved conditionally the mixed-use development. It was, to refresh your memory, 340 multifamily units. It had a share of micro units, I think about 60, ground floor commercial, and rooftop amenity deck, 8 stories, and it also, we worked to integrate the new building with the historically designated 401 South Dixie, which is the Johann Joe's building. So at that hearing, the board approved the application on the condition that we come back at a future hearing to address a couple of things. And those items were to address the service alley, look at that again behind Johannes Joe, study it for aesthetics and with regards to landscaping, what people would be experiencing as they walk through or walk past that space, with regard to specifically landscape, hardscape, lighting, building fixtures, materials, finishes, door colors, etc. The second condition was the south elevation to be studied with regard to the same aesthetics relative to the functionality of utilities, above grade pipes, colors of materials, finishes, doors, hardscape, etc. And you also left us with a mandate to re-examine the color palette of the overall structure. So we spent the last 9 months looking at those elements, and for the condition 1, the service alley, if you'll recall, in last June, on the left here on the screen, there was nothing there between the buildings, just the doors between the 2 buildings and the access to the trash room. Also on the streetscape, we did, thanks to staff's comments, revised that, and it kind of feeds into what you'll see on the street into the alley as you look into it. So as you'll notice, that there's the landscaping green strip in front of the bus stop. There's only 2 trees here, but if you'll look onto the image on the right, we've revamped that to add some foundation planting on the new building side of the alley. And then on the frontage for Dixie, we've added an additional tree and broke up the planting strip to be able to move the bus stop bench closer to the curb. And that'll provide for better access, obviously. And so as you're passing by, this is what the new vision will be. We added foundation planting, an additional tree, moved the bench closer, and you'll notice a lighter color palette on the proposed building. For condition 2, you asked us to study the look and functionality of the south elevation. The specific concern was for the look of the utilities as as a pedestrian is passing along the sidewalk. What are they going to see? A bunch of pipes, or are they going to see water meters? And so we realized that we didn't have that level of detail on the site plan. So we added the utilities you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, added those utilities in, and then we said, okay, well, now we have to landscape it and screen it. So we did add additional landscaping on the building side to show you how that's going to look. This is that area. You'll see the water meters, the foundation planting. It's going to be planted with Fakahatchee grass, which will grow to screen the utilities. And you wouldn't be able to see on the building side the utilities as you're passing by. So you'll have foundation planting on the building side and on the sidewalk, the street side of the sidewalk as you're walking past. So that's what a pedestrian will experience. And to that lighter color palette, we listened and the architect studied different color changes, realizing that another dark gray building was not gonna fly. So we lightened it up. So it's now a creamy white color instead. This is the east elevation and the south elevation. And the new elevation, the new color actually integrates the color or complements the color of the existing Johann Joe's building a little bit better as well. In the grand scheme of things, it really, we went ahead and deleted, eliminated the dark gray plaster finish from the color palette. All the rest of it we were able to maintain in the plans. And so the next couple of pictures or images are just around the property, around the project, the befores and afters. So this is before, or in June, what we came to originally. You'll see the dark gray, and then how that's changed, or that will be changed to this lighter color. From the southeast corner, so this is the view from the parking lot that is next to the AT&T building, and that's what what used to look like and what we are proposing now. From the northeast, that would be the southeast corner. That would be the corner behind or across the street from Johann Joe, and the proposed color. And the courtyard pictures did not populate, so I apologize for that. But this is the aerial view. And again, what's being proposed.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. It's very clear and straightforward. Anything from staff?
Yeah, so the staff doesn't have a formal presentation on this, and just reiterating that, again, through this architecture update, the applicant has submitted revised plans addressing a lot of these concerns with the additional landscaping on the facade, and as well as outlining additional materials on the garage faces and those lower facades on the south elevation. We concur it still meets the regulations and complies with the previous approval as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anyone in the audience have any comment on this case? All right, seeing none, we'll close public discussion. Any questions or comments from the board for staff or the applicant?
Super fast. Thanks, Meredith. It looks much better. Thanks, Roger, for being, guiding us through these architectural moments. No, it looks really good. Great improvements. I want to thank you for taking the time. I know it's been a while, but this is much better. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it looks great. Thanks for your efforts. Okay, does anyone have a motion?
Also, Chair, I just want to reflect that Board Member Doe did join.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kim, there you are. Yep. Let the record show Kim Doe is present. Okay, you want to make a motion, Kim?
I don't think there is a motion. Is there? There's no motion, right?
Yeah, there'll be no formal requirement for a motion or anything. It was just an update to you guys and make sure that there's no additional comments before staff gives the site plan approval, and then they can move on to the building permitting process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for listening to all the comments, and looks like a great project. Appreciate it. Okay, I think that's the end of today's cases. Anybody have any new business or other business, anything for discussion?
Nope.
Hey, Chris, crazy questions. I know it's out of the downtown. What's the status of Curry Park and the fenced-in blockade condition? Why is it closed off to the world? And I'm sure there's some logic behind it.
Rick Green, Development Services Director. That specific question I can't answer. I can say that work is imminent. They expect to start work at Curry Park very, very shortly.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments, or are we done? I think we're done for today. Okay, we'll adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.